Hello, everybody. I am here today, Tom Foster, for one of our new Tom Talks to Smart People series. And today on the video, I've got a very old and dear friend. Well, no, he's not old. He's like been a friend for a while. I mean, he's seasoned. And I got my buddy here, Jonathan Cooper, from up in New York, who's a attorney. And he's been how long have you been practicing law, Jonathan?
A little over 20 years.
So tell me a little bit about what kind of law you practice, a little bit about your experience.
Okay. The biggest chunk of what I do these days really has to do with non-compete agreements, litigation of the non-compete agreements, and increasingly by virtue of litigating those cases and seeing what tends to stand up in court as opposed to getting knocked out, I've started to draft more and revise a lot of non-compete agreements, particularly for small businesses and in the last couple of years, particularly for medical practices and dental practices.
Okay. So you've been doing this for a while. You've seen a lot of business guys like me and other business like doctors, specifically dentists, make this mistake over and over again, right?
That is correct. Yes.
And they come to you with their tales of woe, and you got to basically try to fix something that's already happened. And the point of this conversation is to kind of plan ahead and
preventative medicine, for lack of a better term.
Some preventive medicine. That's good. So, tell me, what is a non-compete? Give me your legal, and why should any of us care? Why should we motivate me to do it?
Okay. A non-compete is an agreement where you say that this employee who works for you is not going to work in that same niche industry for a certain amount of time and within a certain distance of where your primary offices are located. Now, I should, as a jumping off point, I should also mention that there's something else to consider, which is, as opposed to a non-compete, there's a thing called a non-solicit, which means that, you might be able to work in that same industry, but you can't touch my client base and you can't touch my employees. And that may not be limited in geographic scope or for amount of time.
Well,
so that's in terms of definition.
Right. And you want, obviously, here's an example that just happened to me about this, and I have a bank representative at PNC Bank that it was our representative there for years and years, and very nice lady, and set us all up with our accounts, and then she just disappeared. And she was gone, didn't hear from her. A couple years later, here she is, and she's taken off her PNC hat, and now she's got her Capital One hat on, and she's going through a Rolodex of everybody that she signed up, and now she's coming to me, and I have no particular allegiance with PNC, right? It's a big dumb bank. So is Capital One, but, I have merchant fees, and I have a lot of considerations, so her thing might be more attractive to me. The point is, that's what we're trying to protect. So,
exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And that's all negotiable terms.
Yes. Well, with certain limitations that we're going to get to, yes. You mentioned the question earlier, why should you care?
Yeah.
And the reason why you should care, particularly if, let's say, you're a medical practice or in the intellectual property sector, in the tech sector, is because typically you will have invested 20, 30 years of blood, sweat, tears, capital to build up this client roster. That's usually the goodwill of a business is the most valuable asset that you have. And if you're smart, if you built the business with your own two hands, that's the thing that would theoretically keep you up at night is, oh my God, what happens if some of them start to leave, if they go out the door? I have this employee of long duration and I paid them all this money. I taught them everything they know. Now then they can just pick up and take that with them. They didn't invest their time and they invested time, but they didn't invest their money. They didn't learn to build this from the ground up, which I did with my two hands. So if that doesn't keep you up at night, I don't know what will.
And nothing's perfect. I mean, that's that. I mean, human beings are human beings, and
Right.
they can still take what they've learned and go across the country and compete over there, whatever. And I mean, like it's a tricky thing because obviously you want to teach your people, and everybody thinks that your people are just loyal to you and you're loyal to your people and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, everybody's got their own self-interest that they're looking at.
Sure.
And
Everyone has their own family, has their own thing. And
right.
just so we understand, contracts are not for when things go right. They're for when things go wrong.
They're insurance.
You could have somebody who loves you for 20 years, but all of a sudden something happens, you have a falling out. This happens all the time. So then that's what you have the contract for. That's there to give you some measure of protection. Is anything perfect? No.
I like that. I'm going to use that again. Did you make that up?
Actually, no. One of my best friends coined that phrase. I loved it. I thought it was
all right. Well, I'm giving it to you for my world.
Okay.
All right. Well, very good. So yeah, like we care because we're trying to protect our business, and you've got to create some strong language there, right? I mean,
yeah, but it goes back to that old adage of, and I may be getting this wrong. I think the phrase goes, "Pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered." It may be the other way around. I don't remember. But
pigs get fat. Pigs get fat.
Pigs get fat.
Hogs get slaughtered.
Right. Okay.
You know who tells me that all the time? My CPA.
Okay.
That's not something.
No, but it's true, particularly in this realm. If you try to bite off too much, and I've seen this a lot, they put these incredibly overbroad agreements there where they can't tie their shoelaces without asking you. A judge is just, but if you're reasonable about it and you say, look, you want to go out, get a better job, better pay, God, I'm not standing in your way, but don't take my client base, don't take my employees. As a general rule, courts are going to be far more inclined to say, yeah, I'm going to let that one stand.
Very good. That's right. I mean, like it's all negotiable, and
yeah, sure.
And usually, like when and you want to do this when you're hiring them, right? Sign here. This is when you're hiring it. Now they're excited to come on board, and that's when you're like, here's the. I mean, it's like a business. What is it that you prenup? It's a business prenup.
Yes, and in fact, I'm glad you mentioned that because there are some jurisdictions, like in Illinois, where if you don't do it when you first hire them, unless you give them some additional compensation, you can't then give it to them 2 years in or something like that. So it depends. A lot of that is jurisdiction dependent. In New York, for example, you would be allowed to give it to them and say, look, if you don't sign this, your job is over. But in a lot of other jurisdictions, absent additional money or some other benefit, you're not going to be allowed to do that.
Okay.
And that goes back to your point that you want to do that at the get-go.
So for those that are listening and they might be mildly interested, but like most of us, we don't think about the parachute until the plane is going down. This is one of those parachutes. This is one of those things like insurance and stuff that you got to do in advance. Share with me a horror story about this not happening when somebody did not have a non-compete in place.
All right, I'll give you a great example. There's a case in one of New York's appellate courts that came down, I think, about 2011, called Go Smile against Levine. Now, the Levines were a husband and wife team, and they were selling this. They developed this proprietary thing to sell tooth whitening and oral hygiene products, and it becomes very successful. They turn around and they sell the company.
Right.
They turn around and sell the company, and as part of that deal, which is typically what happens, they stay on because they're the ones who have all the know-how, and they're getting paid a very nice salary, a nice six-figure salary to stay on as a consulting contract. Nutshell version is they have a falling out with the new owners. And what they were doing is they were taking the clients, which the goodwill is what they sold the business for, as then all of a sudden they're taking all these clients across the street to a competing business that they formed while still working for the company. And there were a lot of hoops that the court had to jump through to allow the claim against them to survive, because procedurally there were a lot of problems with the claim, but it could have turned out a lot worse for them. And one thing is for certain, Ghost Smile spent an awful lot more money than they really should have had to, because they didn't have some of the protections that perhaps they would have liked to have had in place.
That's a great point. I mean, like, no matter what, you're going to spend legal fees. You're going to have to hire a lawyer if you get in a fight.
Yeah, we're not
right?
cheap. We're not cheap.
You're not cheap. I'm going to tell you.
No.
I mean,
No.
I love you guys. We all need you when we need you. But, nobody likes to pay that bill, so you got to think about it. I mean, even lawyers have to hire lawyers. They don't want to pay that bill. But it's because you guys are fighting the fight, going in there, doing your thing. But the point that you're making with all this is that you don't have to pay as much as all these other people if you have better protection.
Right. I mean, you may still have to spend money. To be clear, you may still have to spend money, but you're probably talking about a fraction of what you otherwise have to spend. And it's recognizing the value. I just had a conversation with a guy last week. I did a non-compete for him. And he's, hawking me about the bill. Oh my gosh, how long does this really take you to do? And then I asked him, year one, how much would it cost you if this guy violates the non-compete? And he said, probably about $300,000 to $600,000. I said, okay, and you're bothering me about a bill about $2,000. Think about that for a second.
Right. Well, yes, I just went through that with an attorney, $600 an hour. And to me, like what she saved me from, it was well worth it. I mean, I got a $5,000 bill instead of I was going to have to pay like $20,000. I'd rather pay her. Anyway, so it's less. You're right. I mean, it's math. Okay.
And it's not only that, it's also the aggravation, Tom. It's also the aggravation.
If you have to slog through it. And loss of business.
That's right. The time that you're doing that, you're not working on your business, you're not working in your business. That's just an absolute straight loss. Right.
Okay, so why don't you tell me, let's give the listeners, you got 3 best ways to protect the patient roster, right?
And this is true across many different disciplines. Obviously, as we mentioned earlier, that a contract is not for when things go right, it's for when they go wrong. You still have to have policies and procedures and structures in place to try and make sure, in case people have to part ways, and they do, that it's done as painlessly and cleanly as possible. But obviously, preventive medicine is the best thing. Number one is, if you have a friendly work environment, no one's going to really want to look to hurt you. And these are pretty obvious things. Number 2 would be, if something is legitimately proprietary, legitimately confidential, it's not enough for you to just say, I'm taking a stamp and say, oh, it says confidential on it. No. If it's really confidential, have password protections, have limited access, have limited administrators. So that way later, if you have to slug it out, you can point out to the court, no one could have really gotten into this particular database or what have you unless they were actively looking to do something wrong. And the third thing is to have a structured offboarding process, which would mean, for example, that you have a sit down with the HR manager or whatever it might be, or the office manager. They turn in their keys, their pass keys, and their email access would get turned off. It has to be done in a logical, professional, nice way. Again, but don't kick anybody on the way out, because if you treat them disrespectfully, they're going to look to hurt you. So again, just be logical, be smart, and be nice.
An onboarding process. Oh, look, Maisie's in. Look, is everybody say hi to Maisie? All right. We're almost done. Somebody's got to go to the bathroom, I think. So
okay.
It's a good thing that we're almost done with this because people need to call you anyway and get some help, right? So it's the big thing is the onboarding process, getting these processes in place to protect you, and offboarding if they leave. And you're right. Be pleasant, even if you got to let people go. You don't need, it's not a personal thing. It's time to go, whatever. And, don't do what you can as a business owner, and that's not always easy, to make sure that you're just not, like, pissing people off. Although sometimes they deserve it. So there's different rules in different countries. Yes, that's true. But different rules in different states that they would want to talk to you about, and you can give them advice no matter what state they're in, correct?
Right.
Okay, very good. And so in order to reach you, Jonathan, because I think that they should just, now they can call you and get a quick little consultation, and they can give a little bit, you can give them some information, and you can figure out if you guys want to play together and if you can help them or not, right?
That's right.
Okay, so your number, and we'll put it on the screen here, 516-791-5700, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, now I know, because it took us a long time to schedule this call, how busy you are. And, you're pretty overloaded with, I wouldn't say overloaded, but you've got a lot of these cases going on and a lot of this work going on. So they should call you sooner rather than later. And if they want to go check out your book or get more information, we got this fancy URL here, coopersnoncompete.com.
Okay.
Like that?
Yeah, I do.
So you go to that URL, and you can download his book, and you can sign up for Jonathan's newsletter. He's a very smart guy, very pleasant man. He's got, he's single-handedly trying to populate the country. How many are we at?
The last time I was told it was 9.
9 kids. So that's Ben Glass. You're.
Yeah.
But that's all you. That's all you on 9, right, Jonathan?
That's what my wife is insisting on. It's her story. She's sticking with it. So.
All right, buddy. Well, do you want any last words for our group?
No. Look, if they want to email me, they can also email me. That's a great way to get me because, as you mentioned, I am in court typically a few days a week. So my email is jmcooper@jmcooperlaw.com. That's a fantastic way to reach me. And typically, given that the daytime is very, very busy, and I assume the doctors listening to this call are busy with patients, I try to return their calls at the end of the business day, typically a little bit after 5 o'clock, when it's a little bit quieter.
Yeah, convenient for them.
Right.
And so I'm just reading some of these notes that we did, and this is a good thing, guys, to make you at least talk to Jonathan. It doesn't cost anything to ask him what's up. If you don't do this, or if you do have this in place, what you can expect as a result, if you don't have it in place, is you're going to get recovery of your legal fees. So if you've got a good one written up, he's free. Look at it like that, right? So if this happens to you, then you're covered. So it is like insurance, liquidated damages, and injunction relief. So this is some legal words that they have meaning to me, but as long as you can make them go away, Jonathan, I'd be a happy guy. Okay. I think I need you to look at. You need to look at mine. Wasn't I supposed to send that to you?
You were.
I failed. Connie, will you please? Oh, I don't know if we can. I don't know. I'll have to ask Buster. Anyway, I got to do it myself, so we'll be talking about it. I think I'm going to call you first. All right, buddy.
The other thing is, I think I mentioned to you that people who either download the book or email me in response to this webinar, they do get a $500 discount off my normal price for doing one of these things.
Wow. I didn't know you were going to do that. Well, that's very generous of you. So, guys, take advantage of that because I'm not going to let him do that much longer. We're going to stop that. So get it before I edit this out. Anyway, Jonathan, great talking to you as always and great seeing you. Everybody, Jonathan Cooper did this from his conference room with his iPad. I have all this technology around, and there he is. So if you're looking for some help, he's the guy. Thanks, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Tom.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.